to Grid Live Wrap Up. IndyCar had an eventful race that led to a nighttime finish. Pecco Bagnaia is back on championship form, but for how long? And Triple Eight Racing did not score a win at the Repco Supercar Series race at Tasmania. Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight joins me tonight. I'm Joe Samaniego. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network. You too can invest in the Grid Network. Link in the video description, get your name on the leaderboard, and you could do a one-time investment through Buy Me Coffee, YouTube Super Chat. We'll thank you on the air. We don't see it till after the show. We'll thank you on the next time we're on the air. And of course, next time we go on the air, Grid Encore, they'll be recapping the NASCAR Cup Series race as tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. The race will be on the USA Network. Due to rain, they will start the race to resume stage 2 and go forward. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss Grid Encore. I can only imagine Ben has plenty to say about the NASCAR race, depending on how it goes in Michigan. But Kobe, let's talk about the IndyCar Series at Gateway. And it was a fun race. Plenty of passing, different strategies. But unfortunately, the ending is marred with controversy. Let's start with the first one, Will Power. He appeared to squeeze David Malukas in turn 1 and 2. The two of them entered side by side. Power came down, contact, Malukas into the wall. No penalty for avoidable contact, but David Malukas was side by side. Even entering the corner, it appeared he had a slight edge on him. The second big controversy is Joseph Newgarden on that second to last restart. No penalty. Many were saying he was potentially brake checking the field. They all got bunched up. Will Power, Colton Herta, they were among the people making this claim. And Colton Herta even called it dirty on the radio shortly after the caution came out. And we saw also Will Power give the bird to Joseph Newgarden. I would just, again, no penalty, but on board, it's very hard. I don't see anything malicious from Joseph Newgarden. And then the third, Colton Herta racing hard with Linus Lundqvist, pushing him, forcing him to the way bottom of the backstretch. Linus still got around, but Colton Herta, a penalty for blocking despite no crash and still losing the position, dropping to the end of the cars on the lead lap. Kobe, do you feel race control was inconsistent, or is this more blown up rather than the controversy that we potentially saw and people are talking about?
Well, Joe, I'm going to start off by saying this. Last night, was I watching an NTT INDYCAR Series race at Gateway, or was I watching a Saturday night feature at Hickory Motor Speedway? Because it was a typical short track Saturday night because you had controversy, you had hot tempers, you had Will Power mad at Joseph Newgarden, Will Power mad at David Malukas. David Malukas upset with Will Power, mostly upset that he lost the chance to win his first race. It was just seemed like you had multiple drivers who were angry at one another. But hey, that's what you really like with this short oval / short track racing and all of that. But to answer the question you asked, I do think that race control was very inconsistent in how they handled this. I think that it really hasn't been a banner year for IndyCar race control, because we've seen this happen earlier in the year, where there's these questionable calls or questionable no calls. And I think and then that they'll call this and they won't call this, and you're confused because you want to see more consistency. But I really do feel like that it was very inconsistent towards the end of the race. I was a little surprised that there wasn't a penalty for Will Power, because it was obvious when they're looking at the replay. It seemed like he really did squeeze David Malukas and run him out of track, and that's why he ended up spinning. But when you're in David Malukas' shoes, of course you're gonna go to the inside and try to send it. And Brandon right there said Power received his karma. And I'll be honest, exactly when I saw that Power was involved in that crash, I thought the exact same thing. So I guess Power got his penalty there out of the race with that restart stack up. But yeah, that was weird that they didn't call a penalty on Will Power there. And then the restart with Joseph Newgarden, it seemed like that's what most people are really fired up about it. From my perspective, when I was watching it happening live, it really seemed like Joseph Newgarden was playing some games on the restart, like trying to time it at the right time where he can get the advantage and jump out front. And obviously some of the drivers felt like he was like you say, Joe was brake checking them, and it was very frustrating to them. But according to the media outlet Trackside Online, presented by Honda Racing /HPD, they said the IndyCar confirmed that Joseph Newgarden maintained a consistent 80 mile per hour speed on the lap 251 restart. And additionally, IndyCar stated that he hit the green light, which was deployed simultaneously to Newgarden, hitting the throttle per telemetry review. So according to IndyCar, there Joseph Newgarden did nothing wrong from their perspective. So that's why he did not receive a penalty for playing games on the restart there. But I'm sure a lot of people are still going to disagree with that, regardless of what IndyCar say. And then the aggressive block that Cole Herta threw on Linus Lundqvist, I actually thought that this was a good call. I'm sure some people will disagree with that, but going down the backstretch there, Linus Lundqvist, he was clearly trying to make the overtake on the inside, and Cole Herta just kept coming down. I was had quite an aggressive block there. So I thought I had no problem with that penalty, but I think the big problem is, like, why are you calling something like this, but you didn't call anything on Power and you didn't call anything on Newgarden? And I think that's where a lot of people start running into issues. And of course, people are gonna point the fact, who owns the series? Penske Entertainment. And who are the two drivers involved that did not get called? Team Penske driver Joseph Newgarden, Team Penske driver Will Power. So I think that's where some people are like, I don't really know about all of this, given the inconsistency of these calls. So it was definitely quite a cat at night, in the St. Louis area.
It was very chaotic, and as you say, it seems similar from something like a short track Saturday night racing where you get that late caution and then we just get chaos. And for the Will Power David Malukas incident, they enter side by side. I thought he's going to get a penalty because at one point it looked like as they were approaching turn one, Malukas had a little bit of a lead edge going into that corner. But of course, Power with the momentum, the contact, I thought that was going to be a penalty. Same time, I also know too, a lot of people were seeing David Malukas as a sentimental favorite because you saw that post-race interview. He was emotional that he did not get that finish.
On the verge of tears, right?
Verge of tears. He raced his heart out. He knew this was his best opportunity. And considering where he was at the start of the year, thinking he was on the highest of high with McLaren, decides to go mountain biking, just flat out ruin his year. That would have been a huge win. I was thinking, I think everyone's making a bigger deal because this would have been an absolute feel-good story if he had gotten that win, because we know McLaughlin, Newgarden, most likely could not make it. Then that restart, when Will Power is saying his own teammate was causing this, messing this up, that says something. And Will Power, I got to give it to that. I don't remember the NBC reporter's name. Was it Dylan Welch that interviewed Will Power?
Yeah. And if you could read Will Power's lips on the camera, it really sounded like, I don't know for sure, but it really looked like he told Dylan Welch to F off. And to Dylan's credit, he stuck with it and still ended up getting the interview. Yeah, and also to Will Power's credit as well. I think he realized in the moment, that he was in the wrong, and he actually Dylan conducted a very nice interview, and Will Power, gave him some really good answers there. So I give credit to both of them in that moment.
Yeah, Will Power was so angry. Dylan Welch, I believe, tweeted or commented on a post somewhere that he saw the angry eyes on him. It's like, that's something else. I still remember a few years ago, we got a very angry James Hinchcliffe interview. That was something else. So Dylan getting that interview with Will Power shortly after that, big shout out for him, the job he does. But overall, I just feel this was just turned from a really good race, very similar to another race last weekend that got marred in controversy in the finish, but a very good race, so much to talk about. And then this finish, and again, as you say, people making the comparison, who owns the series, who owns those teams that are involved in no penalty calls, and won this race. And I'll say this, at least when it comes to the race win, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, the best cars on the track. We saw how the pit stop was the difference maker. They both came in. Scott McLaughlin's pit crew just a little bit slower than Joseph Newgarden. 5-second pit stop for 4 tires. Amazing. And we know had that caution not come out because of Power Malukas, they most likely were not going to win. Newgarden, I thought his chances of winning were done when he started spinning, exiting turn 2, but he saved it and won. Do you think Joseph Newgarden is back, Kobe? Do you think the momentum is back for Newgarden, especially since 3 of the last 4, they're on ovals?
I said, if you look at the point standings, Joe, I believe Joseph Newgarden was 126 points behind with just a few races ago. Got Portland coming up next weekend, and you got a doubleheader at the Milwaukee Mile, and then got the season finale at Nashville Super Speedway. So that's 4 races left to go, and a 126 point deficit to make up. So I think Joseph Newgarden will certainly have some momentum, but given the disqualification of St. Pete and some other issues that he had earlier in the season, I think even if Joseph Newgarden goes out and tears it up, that it's still going to be an uphill battle for him to try to win this championship. I don't think that that everything favors Joseph Newgarden right now championship wise, but I certainly think he can improve his points position and finish much higher than he is right now. So I think that's probably the most likely scenario that he improves his points position by a lot. But I think for a championship to happen, he's gonna need a lot of people ahead of him in the standings to run into trouble, and he's basically gonna need to win out the rest of the season. I think that's the only way that Joseph Newgarden is gonna be able to get back in the championship fight. I really believe right now that if you, positions 1 through 5, I think those are probably the drivers who have a realistic shot of winning the championship. Everybody else who's still mathematically eligible, I really don't think that they're going to be in it moving forward.
Especially, we're coming to a track Portland where we know Palou has won that twice. For Joseph Newgarden, he needs to have a solid day at Portland, because the milks you could gain on somebody's 49 points, because last place gets 5 points. Yeah, there's bonus points as well, but 49 is the max you could gain. Joseph Newgarden is going to really have to be near perfect. Survive Portland, I think, is the big key, because like you said, he is pretty close to that line for being eliminated. And as I mentioned, where he is chasing down Alex Palou. And Alex Palou, Kobe, just nice. Seemed like it almost went from, okay, this is not exactly going Palou's way, to going Palou's way. And before I get into the question about Palou, let's go to the chat room, because there's a question about the driver second in the points. Surprisingly, Colton Herta, who that means Will Power's now winning Battle of Mid with Colton Herta second in points. Brandon asks, do you think Herta stands a chance at the championship? Kobe, I gotta say, with Herta being second place in the points, mathematically, yeah, he does. What are your thoughts?
I guess we need to call Colton Herta. Mr. Where did he come from? Because I still don't have any idea how Colton Herta got up there second place in the championship, because it really seems like that Colton Herta, throughout his career, that he struggled to put together races, and it really seemed like it really seemed like that Colton Herta finally started to put together a few more races, and then there were some moments this season when Colton Herta messed up, and then we were like, yeah, this is the same old Colton Herta, who still can't put together complete races. But it really seems like he's starting to trend in the right direction right now. I think if Colton Herta can stay out of trouble and continue to, show that he's grown and can put together those races and stay out of trouble, I believe he can potentially take the fight to Alex Palou. I don't think Alex Palou is a weak oval racer by any means, but if I had to bet money on it, I think Alex Palou would stand a much better chance winning on a road or a street course than he would on one of these oval tracks. And I do think Colton Herta is a solid oval racer, but sometimes it just hasn't worked out on the ovals for Colton Herta. But if I think Colton Herta goes out to Portland, has a good weekend, and then obviously go to Milwaukee and Nashville, try to finish higher than Palou in all of those events. If the cards fall in the line, Colton Herta might be the IndyCar champion at the end of the year. I think it is certainly possible. Although it really seemed like Colton Herta hasn't had the strongest season, but he's actually been doing a lot better than a lot of people think.
That performance last night from Colton Herta, going from, I believe, 26th or 25th on the grid.
He said to start in the back of the field, because he had that crash in qualifying. Then the same people who criticized Colton Herta, they were saying, see, that's why Colton Herta isn't able to take the next step. And then to come from the back of the field to go up there, get a strong points finish. I think it just shows that Colton Herta is hungry. He really wants to have a chance at this championship. And yesterday we were heading into the race, a lot of people had low morale, disappointed, thinking, that this is going to be just like Iowa, where it was just a track position race, where the only thing that would be chaotic was the restarts. And then once it gets spread out, then you're basically going to be stuck behind another car and won't be able to move unless they have to lift or make a mistake, and that there was going to be any passing at all. But I think last night exceeded everyone's expectation. I thought it was a fantastic race. We saw a lot of passing, a lot of fun strategies to follow out throughout the race. Really would have loved to see it play out until the very end. But I thought last night's race at Gateway definitely exceeded everyone's expectations.
Definitely, it exceeded. Like you said, I thought it would be track position. We saw long green flag runs, but we saw plenty of passing all over, the strategies at different speeds. This was really a fun oval race. For Alex Palou, I felt like he was making a lot of passes early on. He started midfield, had to work his way up. It looked like it was not going to be a good day, but then when Will Power crashed out, Scott Dixon just not having a good day. And then Herta going from fourth to behind Palou in fifth. Alex Palou now 59-point lead over Herta. This means, regardless of what happened in Portland, Alex Palou is going to leave with the points lead unless he, for some reason, does not start the race, does not collect the 5 points, and Colton Herta wins, does everything to get all the bonus points. But as we showed on the graphic earlier, 11 drivers still mathematically have a shot at this championship. I think that's going to go down a lot in Portland. For Alex Palou, with Portland, a track he really likes, Milwaukee, doubleheader, an oval that I don't believe he's raced on, and Nashville, not the street course, the super speedway, the concrete speedway. Do you like Palou's chances of winning a second consecutive and third IndyCar championship overall?
Yeah, I still think Alex Palou is in the driver's seat to win this championship. I think all he has to do is just remain consistent, continue to finish in the top 10, try to finish in the top 5 if you can. I think if Palou is able to be consistent throughout the rest of the season, that this championship is going to be his no matter what happens. I think easily he's one of the favorites to win the Grand Prix of Portland this coming weekend. So I guess I think unless something crazy happens, you can check that off as a box where Alex Palou is going to have a very good race. And then the last 3 races of the season of the Milwaukee doubleheader in Nashville, that's going to be a major wild card. Like you say, Joe, Alex Palou has not raced at the Milwaukee Mile yet. Some of the older veterans in the field have raced at the Milwaukee Mile. It's been a while since IndyCar's raced at Milwaukee. Yeah, so I think that might be a track for some of the veterans who have been here before. But as we already know, Alex Palou is a fast learner, so I think he could still have a great run in both races at Milwaukee and also like Nashville as well. I think that's going to be more of a veterans track. Some of the older drivers, like the Scott Dixons of the world, those are going to be the drivers who I would probably be looking at being one of the favorites heading into Nashville, since they've been here before, and it's also been a very long time since IndyCar's raced at the Nashville Super Speedway. So I think down the stretch here that you're going to see experience play a huge factor, but I definitely would not count out Alex Palou. I still think he can adapt to all the newness that's going to be coming with the last 2 races of the year at Milwaukee and Nashville to end up taking home another IndyCar championship.
With Alex Palou, I feel he could really put everyone in a bad spot leaving Portland. If he gets a win, it's going to be very hard for him to lose the championship. Just run smart races, and like you said, after the Iowa, the second race particularly, I think he's proven oval races is not a weakness from him. He may not exactly be a Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin have the fastest, but he's going to be up there towards the front, even if it was a day like Gateway, making the most. And same time with like Will Power getting caught up, not just in the crash that took him out in the restart, but also, of course, with David Malukas. Just seems Alex Palou knows how to not put himself in a spot where he could get in trouble. Besides what happened in the first race in Iowa, he is going to be hard to beat. One of the best drivers out there. And of course, one driver I was following and it's been pretty interesting with a good, solid top 10 streak going on is Rinus VeeKay. Not exactly a great start to the season. Indy 500, I mean, that didn't go great, but then the race, at least he got in, had a fast car, all that. Ed Carpenter, best finish in 4 races. He does the oval, 17th twice. Rookie Christian Rasmussen, best finish 12th at the Indy 500. I don't know about you, Kobe, but does Ed Carpenter need to consider a change? Because this team appears to be losing ground each year ever since VK first arrived to the team.
Yeah, well, I say, Joe, that Ed Carpenter Racing, I feel like that this team has been on decline since they lost Joseph Newgarden to Team Penske. I feel like that's when they were at the highest, when they had Newgarden. Newgarden is easily, the best driver that this organization has ever had. But, since they lost him, there's been a lot of inconsistency, with trying to have drivers in our lineup. There have been a handful of drivers who have driven for Ed Carpenter Racing since Newgarden's departure, and none of them really seem to pan out. I think, obviously Renus VK is the leader of this team, and I think despite what you see in the point standing and the results, I think Renus VK is way more talented than what the results and actually showing, and then the speed of the car. And if I'm not mistaken, Joe, I believe that Renus VK's contract is up at the end of the year, at the end of this year or next year. I believe it is this year, but if things don't improve soon, it would not surprise me to see if Renus VK could be looking for another home in the NTT INDYCAR Series, because I don't understand what the problem is at Ed Carpenter Racing. It seems like that the one day where they truly show up is Indy 500 qualifying, and then after that, you don't really hear anything from them. You don't really see much from them on the road and the street courses for the most part. And then Indy 500 roll around. You may see them have a good run in the 500, but sometimes things just happen during the race, and they don't get the result that they need. But yeah, I really do believe that they need to make changes. I believe at the end of last season, I also said that I believe Ed Carpenter Racing need to make some changes to become more competitive. But if they did make changes over the offseason, it really seemed like it hasn't worked. And if they haven't made any changes, then it will be a good time to start looking into making those changes for 2025. And his name is in the title, Ed Carpenter of Ed Carpenter Racing. I think it's safe to say, that Ed Carpenter is well past the prime of his career right now. I don't really know how much longer that he's going to continue racing. I have a lot of respect for Ed Carpenter and everything that he's done for the sport and all of that. So I'm hopeful for him that he's able to figure this situation out with the team. But yeah, I think they really do need to make some changes.
From when VK won on the road course, and I thought, okay, they were going to take the step up. That has not happened. It just seems this team just steadily keeps going a little lower. Last year, they had sponsorship from Nile. That was, of course, how we saw them essentially go 2 cars with Connor Daly. They split. Ryan Hunter-Reay comes in. And I thought, okay, maybe they're starting to get things going the right way. And just this year does not seem to do it. It seems that BK seems to be carrying more of that team. And I was thinking, too, about his contract situation. VK, I almost feel if he's carrying the team, how much does Ed Carpenter is thinking we need him? Because look at what he's doing with his top 10 finishes when we cannot get that from our rookie. Ed Carpenter's not doing that on the ovals no more. And I think, like you say, it might be just, hey, you're past your prime, including the ovals. Time to pass off to the next person. So I really am hopeful Ed Carpenter does make some short changes to try to get this program going the right way, and be interested to see what will happen with VK, and especially the big teams are already pretty much lined up. There's the rumors of the charter and the limit of teams allowed, so it's going to be really interesting to see where he ends up, what Carpenter does. Something we're definitely going to be following throughout the remainder of the season. And of course, IndyCar, their next race, Portland, will be here. Jackson making a trip up to Portland. Encourage everyone to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our coverage there. Let's switch over to the grid ranking, Kobe, where we saw, well, it's unofficial, but MotoGP, Pecco Bagnaia, he's still in charge of the grid ranking.
Yeah, it was quite a weekend for him, as Pecco Bagnaia sweep of the Austrian Grand Prix means he extends his lead in the grid ranking. Jorge Martin maintains second ahead of Sebastian Ogier, Will Brown, and Max Verstappen to round out the top 5. Joe, you said Pecco is either a championship rider or having weekends where he completely bends it. Does this weekend add pressure on Jorge Martin to step it up next race weekend?
The next time they do race, if Pecco Bagnaia is looking as good as he did this weekend, yes, it's going to put the pressure on Jorge Martin. Like you said, it seems weeks where he is just championship caliber, hard to beat. But then when he gets enough of points lead and we start talking about, oh, he has this, it just seems he starts to bend it. Martin cannot rely on that Pecco Bagnaia coming back. It might happen, but Martin now has to be stepping up his game, being near perfect. He cannot have mistakes where he goes out there, has a lead like he did at Germany, and then crashes out. He's been racing good, solid the last 2 weekends. It just happened to be Pecco Bagnaia. He is just getting one step better. That's what a championship rider does. So Jorge Martin, I think, has to step it up. He just has to be careful and not cross the line, take himself out of the championship. That'll make life a lot easier if Pecco Bagnaia has a big lead in the championship, considering both riders have Ducati power, but Pecco is the factory rider and still leading the grid ranking. The rest of the grid ranking is unknown, as we still have NASCAR to race tomorrow. Mathematically, no NASCAR driver cannot make it into the top 10 this week. So the top 10, while published, unofficial, but supercars, what a weekend, Cody. We saw Nick Percat, Cam Waters take the win. Chas Monster is now 81 points away from Will Brown for the lead in the Supercar Series Championship. Brock Feeney fell to third. Cam Waters, who got the other win, is now fourth. Kobe, is this game on? Triple A Racing been caught? And are they under some pressure to step it up?
Yeah, I think this was a similar question we asked after the last round. But yeah, I think the competition has definitely caught up to Triple A Racing, and we're definitely gonna have a championship battle on our hands. I think Will Brown, yeah, he had a solid race result in Tasmania, but the pressure is definitely, you have Chas Monster, Brock Feeney's in the hunt, and then you're gonna have Cam Waters fighting for the title as well. I think it's gonna be a very fun championship battle, because now the sprint race season is over, and now we're getting into all of the enduros. You have the Sandown 500 coming up, and after that is the Bathurst 1000, and then to close out the season, got the Gold Coast and Adelaide, then the 2024 Supercar season. So I think that this championship battle is far from over, and we could really shake up the picture, especially, with the wild card factor with the co-drivers coming up for the next 2 races. So so basically the co-drivers are going to play a big role in what happens in the season-long drivers championship here, because what if your co-driver throw it off the track and crash, and then that's your championship down the drain right there. So there's really a lot to think about heading into the final stretch of this Supercar season. I think that AAA does absolutely will have to step it up. They've been the standard, in the Supercars championship for quite a while now, but it seems like that when we go to the racetrack now, is no longer a guaranteed AAA race win. You have others stepping up, Walkinshaw Andretti United. You have Tickford stepping up, Matt Stone racing as well, and a lot of others. Supercars is very competitive right now, and that's exactly what we saw in Tasmania. There was no telling who was going to be the top dog at the end of the weekend. And circling back to what we saw in race 1, who would have had Nick Percat winning this race? I don't know if you would have, Joe. I don't really know if anyone would have picked Nick Percat winning a race. And I want to say good for Nick Percat, because the last couple of years have not been good at all. When he was at Walkinshaw Andretti United, first year, not really that great, and last year was absolutely horrendous for him. And some people wondered, if Nick Percat even deserved to continue being a full-time supercars driver, considering the fact that he finished towards the very back of the championship and nothing went his way last year. And then this year moved to a brand new team, change of scenery, and Nick Percat looks like that driver again that we all knew he could be. A driver that, you give him the right car and the right circumstance, he can take it out there, finish on the podium, get a win. And that's exactly what we saw. And this is Nick Percat's second win of the season. I don't think I would have picked Nick Percat to be a multi-time race winner in supercars this year. I believe he won the last race at the Grand Prix at Albert Park, and then this one as well in Tasmania. So really good for him. And then race 2, had a little drama with AAA during that race between it was between Thomas Randall from Tickford Racing, and then he actually got into it with both AAA drivers. As at first Randall, was aggressive with Will Brown, and then Will Brown didn't like how Thomas Randall racing, so Will Brown basically, shoved him off into the grass. And then after the race, asked Will Brown about that, and Brown's like, "Hey, he gave me a shot, so I just gave it back to him." Yeah, so I guess that is that in that situation. And then Thomas Randall, trying to catch both Triple Eight drivers. He ended up cooking it. He wasn't going to make the corner and just ends up completely dumping Brock Feeney, and that they ended up hurting Feeney in the points because he was going to have a strong points finish and ended up I believe finished down in the teens and didn't really have the good points day that he was going to get. And Thomas Randall actually walked over to the Triple Eight garage. They tried to apologize after the race, but one of the Triple Eight personnel stopped him, and he was like, you're not coming here, because Brock Feeney had already gone in the garage, but one of the Triple Eight personnel prevented Randall from apologizing. But then he seemed like he had a candid discussion with the team principal, Jamie Wincup, and seemed like they at least had an understanding there. So race one, feel good story with Nick Percat. Race two had quite a bit of drama there at the end.
A lot of drama in race two. In the chat room, Triple Eight always do good at Sandown plus Bathurst. Hard to beat at both tracks. Going to be really interesting to see if the competition can step up at those tracks, Kobe.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see how it goes. Yeah, but like Adam said, given Triple A's history at Sandown and Bathurst, I think they're still going to enter those two race weekends as the favorites to win. But really, who knows? Like we've been saying, the last couple of Supercars race weekends, that it seemed like the field has caught up, and especially Ford has closed the gap to Chevrolet. Because remember last year, Joe, it seemed like Chevrolet was the one that was always winning. That Ford was still up, and they got closer towards the end of last season. But this year really seems like that the Fords are really up there, and in the fight with Triple Eight, I think that's going to lead to an exciting finish to this Supercars Championship. I don't think you should pencil in, Will Brown yet as the champion elect, because we still have a lot of racing to go. So it's anyone's game.
A lot of racing to go, and as you were talking about, Percat, 6th place in the standings behind Matthew Payne, then of course Cam Waters, Brock Feeney, Chaz Monster, and your championship leader, Will Brown. A lot going on all over motorsports. Kobe, let's throw it to you for our shining moment.
Yeah, that's right. It's time for our great one shining moment from this race weekend. If you're watching live, leave in the comments below what that stood out to you the most from this racing weekend. And Joe, I'll let you go first.
My shining moment is going to come from the world of the NTT INDYCAR Series. And that's going to go to Nolan Siegel. Led laps, top 10 finish. This driver started the season with Indy Next. Then, of course, tried to qualify for the Indy 500 for Dale Coyne Racing. This is when it seemed like he made international news when he went out, last run, went for it, crashed it, and said, he was doing everything he can to get in this race because this is the Indianapolis 500, the biggest race. Then the surprise move. He is now in the McLaren car, which we've seen that seat change several times, but now he has a top 10 finish. He was leading the race even. Granted, part of strategy, but still, you ran a good race. You put yourself to where you got the lead, made your pit stop, and you still finished in the top 10 in an oval race. In a race where one of your favorite teammates, Pato O'Ward, who's always fast in the ovals, went out with an engine issue, and Alexander Rossi caught up in that late crash. This is a result that could really stand out for that team to say, hey, we have one car in the top 10, and it's our rookie driver, Nolan Siegel. I think this is paying dividends for the McLaren's move to get him. That is my shining moment.
Yeah, Nolan Siegel definitely had a strong run last night, amid all the chaos that we saw. And I think that this is going to be good to build his confidence as we close out this season heading into next year as well. So next year he can hit the ground running with this team, and we can see how much Nolan Siegel can grow under the Arrow McLaren team. But my one shining moment also comes from the IndyCar race, but it's going to go to a driver that actually didn't finish the race. Got to give my one shining moment to David Malukas for the strong run that he shown. Quick in practice, quick in qualifying, quick in the race, and unfortunately, it just didn't in the way that we all expected it to. And it was going to be the race for the win there. We already talked about it. Power versus Malukas. Unfortunately, the two make contact. Malukas in the wall out of the race. But I think the one thing that David Malukas shown is that he has this. I know coming from trying to return from an injury can be hard and all that. Like you were saying during our IndyCar segment, Joe, David Malukas was on top of the world driving for a top IndyCar team in Arrow McLaren. It really seemed like things were looking up for him. Then the injury happened. Arrow McLaren tried to work with him for as long as they could, and then they ended up letting him go from the team. And then that was like the lowest of the lows. And then Meyer Shank Racing picks him up for the rest of the season. And then things are starting to look good. David Malukas is returning. He looked very strong, and throughout the races that we've seen from him this year. And then it gets announced that he's joining AJ Foyt race on a team that's currently on the rise and has an alliance with Team Penske. So it seems like things are looking very up for David Malukas once again. And Gateway, every time he's been here, he's always been in the mix for the win, and he was in the mix for the win again. And if it hadn't been for the contact with Will Power, I have a feeling we would be talking about David Malukas getting a win at Gateway on this show. But I believe is at some point, sometime in the future, if IndyCar continues to go back to Gateway, David Malukas has to win at this track at some point. It seemed like that this is his track and nobody else's, that he is just so good at this racetrack that if he's in a good enough car, he can win in this race. And I think, although it was very disappointing for him last night, I think he can hold his head high, and because we all know what he's capable of. He knows what he's capable of, and he can try to use this to close the season out on a high note and heading into 2025 with AJ Foyt Racing.
Big year with AJ Foyt Racing. Be interesting to see what he could do in the chat room. I like the Malukas pick. He has to take that chance. And he has a lot going for him. And I think overall, David Malukas wanted to make a big deal about 2025. But before 2025, we still have 2024. Grid Encore will recap the Michigan action as well as Indy next at Gateway and ARCA doubleheader from Michigan and Springfield Speedway. So be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon. Don't miss Ben and Brandon on Grid Encore tomorrow. Kobe, you'll be on the air Grid tonight with the latest motorsports news on Wednesday. Then Thursday, Jackson and I, we're going to start our coverage at Portland for the NTT INDYCAR Series at Portland International Raceway. Friday, the Women in Motorsports, and then Saturday, Sunday, the Grid Live programming you expect, especially from Portland. Big busy racing weekend with Formula One and NASCAR. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming coverage. And we'll see you all next time for Grid Encore. Kobe Lambeth, I'm Joe Sanrio. Thank you for watching. You all take care and enjoy the race at Michigan tomorrow.